Mission Jayara. This is the 55th episode of Diksha Mission Jayara. I hope you haven't missed any of the previous videos. So we are glad to inform you that we have launched both Paper 1 and Psychology live classroom courses. These are live courses provided by Diksha. To know more about the course and to enroll the course, you can visit www.dikshaclassroom.com. So in this episode, we are going to discuss the second set of questions of research aptitude in the 2nd December afternoon shift examination. So let's start.
Hello everyone, once again welcome to Diksha Classroom. So in this video, we are discussing the second set of questions that have appeared from the topic research aptitude in afternoon shift 2nd December examination. So let's start. We have discussed the first 3 questions in the previous video. Now let's start with the 4th question. This is the match the list question. Let's read. Match the 2 sets given below in which set 1 mentions levels of measurement and set 2 their properties. You have to match the 2 sets. Now let's look at it. Set 1 discuss about the levels of measurement. There are different levels of measurement given in the set 1 column. Now in set 2, the properties of those levels of measurement are given. Now you have to match the correct level of measurement with the corresponding property. So let's first discuss what are the different levels of measurement. There are 4 different levels are given: nominal, ordinal, interval and ratio. We can measure any data using 4 different levels of measurement, or we can say 4 different scales of measurement, which are given in the table: nominal, ordinal, interval and ratio. So once more, in order to classify, in order to measure any data, we can use any of these levels of measurement or scales of measurement. If we are using nominal scale, it will help us to categorize or classify items. Or simply, nominal scale of measurement categorizes or classifies items. So nominal scale is for the purpose of classification or categorization. Classification or categorization. These are the named variables. The variables which we use in nominal scale is the named variables. Or simply with an example you can understand it better. When we are doing research, when we are coding data which was collected from males and females, we'll be coding males and female as 1 and 2. We'll given the number 1 to male and 2 to female. The scale we use here is the nominal scale, which means the only purpose is to classify the data or classifying the variables. That is nominal variable. Or the name or t-shirt color which is given to 2 different teams in football. That is also an example of nominal variable. Those colors, if it is blue or if it is yellow, those colors are given to the participants just for identifying them, just for classifying them into 2 different teams. That is the only purpose they provide. So in such cases, what we use is the nominal scale of measurement. It is used just for classification. It does not provide any further information or further qualities about the variable. It is just for the purpose of categorization or classification. Just remember the example of 1 and 2 codes given to male and female while doing a research. That is nominal scale. So as you can see, the corresponding property of nominal scale will be the third one of set 2, which is classification. The only purpose classification is given in this one, classification. So we can match nominal to this one. Okay, now moving to the second one, ordinal. What is ordinal scale? ordinal scale can be said to be an advanced form of nominal scale because it does not only do classification but also it rank the items or it order the items or variable. So classification is also done, plus it gives rank or order for the variables or the data. Examples of ordinal scales are the rank given to the students in an examination. There will be first rank, second rank and third rank. That first, second and third rank classifies those students, and also it gives some explanation and information regarding the quality of those students, right? So it is not a nominal one because it is not only doing classification, but it also ranks them or it also ordered them. That is the reason why it is ordinal scale of measurement. So I hope you got the difference. In nominal, the purpose is only to classify things, but in ordinal, classification plus ranking or ordering is done. Now getting back to the question, the most appropriate option which can match with the ordinal scale is classification and order, which is exactly what we have discussed now. Ordinal can be matched to the fourth option of set 2, classification and order. Now, what is the third one? Interval scale of measurement. Interval scale categorizes and ranks the item and has equal intervals, or we can say proportionate intervals between the variable, which means this is an advanced form of both nominal and ordinal scale. It classifies things, it order or gives rank for things, plus these ranks have equal intervals or proportionate intervals. That is simply classification plus ranking plus equal interval. If you are confused, just listen. In ordinal scale, we were discussing about an example of rank in a classroom, right? When we are assigning ranks by using ordinal scale, it will not be having equal interval or equal gap between the two ranks, because if the examination was having a total of 100, a student might be scoring 90. If it is the most highest score, we'll be ranking him as 1 or first rank, and the second most highest score is 75, we'll be ranking that student as second or having second rank. And the third highest rank is 40, we'll be ranking him as the third one or having a third rank, right? So 90 as the first rank, 75 as the second rank, 40 as the third rank. Is the gap between these two ranks are equal? No, right? Because the difference between 75 and 90 are not equal to the difference between 40 and 75. That means if we are ranking using ordinal scale, it does not possess any equal interval between those ranks. That problem is solved in the third one, interval scale. Interval scale measures things and gives equally appearing interval between those datas. It does classification of variables or data, and it does the ranking of the data, plus it gives the equal interval. It has the equal interval between those data. The examples of variables or type of data which uses interval scale are intelligence scale and other attitude scales. In an intelligence scale, we'll be measuring IQ as a score. If it is between 80 and 100, we can say he or she is having average intelligence. Or if it is between 110 and 120 or 130, we'll be saying here she's having intellectually superior IQ or higher IQ. So those type of distinction or classification is based on equal appearing scales or equally appearing data. That is the reason why we say interval scale gives an equally appearing or having equal interval data. So it does classification, ranking, and also it has equal interval. Examples, intelligence scale. Now, getting back to the question, we can easily find the match for interval scale. It will be 2 because interval scale does classification, order or ranking, and equal units or equal interval between those ranks. Now, definitely, the ratio scale will be matching with the first option. Let's discuss why. The difference between interval and ratio scale is that ratio scale is a scale that categorizes and ranks or order items and has equal intervals and also has a 0 point or absolute 0 point. That means absence or none of the thing being measured. That is, I'm writing this down. Then let's discuss. Don't get confused now. Just write it down. So the difference between interval and ratio scale is that just like interval scale, ratio scale also classify things, classify our data, it ranks our data, and it also has equal interval of data, plus it has a true 0 point or an absolute 0 point. Absolute 0 point. The meaning of absolute 0 point is that it has a true 0 point. Okay, it has a true 0 point. Now what is it? What does it mean to have an absolute 0 point? The difference between ratio and interval scale is that in interval scale, there is no absolute 0 point, or we cannot say it have a true 0 point in interval. But in ratio, it does have an absolute 0 point, which means that the examples of ratio scales can be height, weight, temperature. All of these are measured in terms of ratio scale. Height, weight, temperature. It does classify things, it ranks things according to its intensity, it does have an equal interval, plus it has an absolute 0 point, which is that in interval scale we were talking about intelligence, right? If the interval scale measures intelligence as 0, can we say that person is having a 0 intelligence? Can we say a person is having a 0 personality, a 0 attitude, a 0 aptitude? We cannot say the things we measure in interval is 0, that person is possessing that 0 type of quality. We cannot say that 0 as an absolute 0 or a true 0. Don't get confused. That is, putting it simply, if we have got a score 0 in interval scale, that does not mean it is a true 0. We cannot say if an intelligence of a person is 0 when we measure it, we cannot say that person has 0 intelligence or 0 personality or 0 aptitude, which is the 0 we get using interval scale is not a true 0. That is, interval scale does not have an absolute 0 point. But getting back to the second one, ratio scale, what happens when we are measuring temperature, height, length or weight? If we are getting a true score, if we are getting a 0 score when we are using ratio scale, we can say it is 0, because when we are measuring one's length or weight and we are getting true as a score, 0 as a score, we can say it has 0 length or 0 weight, or it is 0 temperature, 0 height. That is possible in ratio scale. It is not like intelligence or personality, because the data we use in ratio can be said to have absolute 0 point. If the temperature is 0, yes, the meaning is that the temperature is 0. If the height is 0, yes, that person is having 0 heights. Or if a particular thing is of 0 length, we can say it is of 0 length. The 0 we measure in ratio does have a true 0 point. That is the difference between interval and ratio scale. I hope you understood this. Many details of this particular topic is discussed in our paper 1 online course. So this is the basic details, but it is enough for you because these are the major understanding or major concept when we are studying levels of measurement. So I hope you understood what nominal scale is, ordinal scale, interval scale, and ratio scales are. So as we have discussed, ratio scale can be matched to the first option of set 2, which is it does classification, it does order things, it has equal units, plus it has an absolute 0 point. So yes, that's all about this question. So the correct answer will be A3, B4, C2 and D1, which is option D. Now moving to the fifth question. In which of the following sampling methods employed in research, the units comprising the sample are given equal and independent chance? Stage sampling, cluster sampling, dimensional sampling, and snowball sampling. So in this question, you have to select the option which can be said to have a technique through which samples are given equal and independent chance of getting into a research process. So the thing you have to understand here in this question is that there are two different sampling methods present in a research process. I hope you know what sampling is. Sampling is the selection of samples or participants from a population in which you are doing your study. And you can select these participants using two different sampling techniques, which are probability sampling and non-probability sampling. Write this down. This is a very important one. Sampling in research can be done in two different ways. We can do sampling through probability sampling, or we can do it by using non-probability sampling. Non-probability sampling. Now, what is probability and non-probability sampling? Probability sampling is that sampling technique in which the elements of the population get an equal opportunity to be selected as a representative sample of the study. So, if we are using probability sampling technique to get samples from our population, the participants of that population will get equal opportunity to be selected, equal and independent opportunity to be selected as a representative sample of our study. That means any one of the participants can get a chance for being a part of our study. But if we are using non-probability sampling, it's a method in which elements of the population are not pre-specified and have unequal opportunity of being a sample. So probability is all about getting equal opportunity for every sample to get selected. But if it is non-probability, there is unequal chance for getting in as a sample. It is equal, it is unequal. Probability sampling uses random sampling method. We are sampling the samples, we are sampling the participants randomly. Random selection is done in probability sampling. That is why there is equal and independent chance for getting into the research process. But if it is non-probability sampling, the process of sampling is not random. It is not random, but it is more like an arbitrary thing. We'll be selecting based on various features or things. The selection is not random in non-probability sampling. Because of this random and arbitrary thing, the main difference between probability and non-probability sampling is that the results we get through probability sampling will be unbiased due to the conclusive nature of random sampling. But the results we obtain through non-probability sampling are biased due to exploratory nature. We'll be selecting the participants by defining various features and things. So results can be biased. So this is the major difference between probability and non-probability sampling. So this is the basic idea about sampling. Now getting back to the question is about the sampling technique in which samples are given equal and independent chances, which we know is exactly, it's talking about the probability sampling. So what you have to do is you have to select the option which is an example of probability sampling. Probability sampling. The only option we have here as an example of probability sampling is the cluster sampling. The cluster sampling. In cluster sampling, the researcher splits the population we have to study into separate groups or clusters. Then a simple random sample of clusters is selected from the population. So in the first stage, researcher will be splitting the population into separate groups or clusters, and from that clusters, the researcher will be selecting the participants using random selection method. That is how we use cluster sampling in sampling process, which gives the participants an equal and independent chance of getting into the sample. So cluster sampling is an example of probability sampling. Now what about the others? The dimensional sampling and snowball sampling. Note it down. These two are examples of non-probability sampling. I am marking this as N. It denotes non-probability sampling. Dimensional sampling and snowball sampling are examples of non-probability sampling, which lets the sample have an unequal and arbitrary chances of getting into a sample. I'm giving you a brief idea about what dimensional and snowball sampling are. Dimensional sampling is an extension of quota sampling. Quota sampling is an example of non-probability sampling, and an extended version of quota sampling is called dimensional sampling, in which the researcher takes into account several characteristics such as one's gender, age, income, place of residence, education level, etc. while considering a sampling. So it is definitely not a random process. It definitely don't give the participant an equal chance of getting into the research process. So that is what dimensional sampling is. Now, snowball sampling is another method of non-probability sampling. Snowball sampling helps the researcher find a sample when they are difficult to locate. Researcher use this technique when the sample size is small and not easily available. It is like a referral program. Once the researcher finds suitable subjects, he or she asks them for assistance to seek similar subjects to form a considerably good size samples. So from one subject, the researcher will be getting the address or contact of another subject, then he'll be collecting data from that subject, and from the second subject he'll be getting the contact of a third one, and he'll be getting data from that third one. Just like this, it goes like a snowball sampling method. It's like a chain method, we could say. So this is how snowball sampling is done, and it is definitely not a probability sampling, it is a non-probability one. So these two options can be excluded from the options. Now what about state sampling? State sampling, we can say it's a method of probability sampling, but only if the term is multi-stage sampling. I hope there is a mistake in this question, because if it was multi-stage sampling, it will also be an example of probability sampling, and the answer will be right for stage sampling also. But the option is not talking about multi-stage sampling. They have used the term stage sampling. Yes, that may be the reason why the UGC's key of this question is option B, that is cluster sampling. So this is a small mistake. Stage sampling is not the correct word. This is multi-stage sampling. But if it is multi-stage sampling, both of these answers will be correct. So that's all about this question. I hope you have understood different types of sampling, probability, non-probability sampling, and examples of these two types of sampling. So the correct answer of this question will be option B. Now moving to the next question. This is the last question of research aptitude topic. In which type of qualitative research design individual stories to describe the lives of people are explored? Ethnography, grounded theory research, symbolic interaction, and narrative research. You have to select the qualitative research which uses individual stories to describe the lives of people. Individual stories. From the term itself, it is really clear what is the right answer, which is narrative. We can connect the term narrative with stories, right? It is really easy. The term narrative comes from the verb to narrate or to tell as a story. We have to narrate in detail. In narrative research design, researchers describe the lives of individuals, collect and tell stories about people's lives, and write narratives about individual experiences. This narrative research is the type of qualitative research design. Individual stories to describe the lives of people are explored. So the correct answer will be option D. Whereas the ethnography is a study through direct observation of users in their natural environment rather than in a lab. That type of natural observation, qualitative thing, is called ethnography. The objective of this type of research is to have insights, to gain insights into how users or how participants interact with things in their natural environment. Now, grounded theory research is a well-known methodology employed in many research studies. Qualitative and quantitative data generation technique can be used in a grounded theory research. It is set out to discover or construct theory from data. Systematically obtained data are used in grounded theory research, and these type of data are analyzed using comparative analysis. The main aim of grounded theory research is to develop a new theory from the data collected. Symbolic interaction is a theoretical approach to understanding the relationship between human beings and society. Human actions and interaction can only be understood through the exchange of meaningful communication or symbols. This is the core theme of symbolic interaction. And these type of theoretical and research questions are answered using symbolic interaction studies. So we know ethnography, grounded theory or symbolic interaction are not mentioned in this question. It is clear that the qualitative research design which uses individual stories is narrative research. So the correct answer will be option D. So yes, that's all about the second set of questions from the topic research aptitude that have appeared in the year 2019, 2nd December afternoon shift examination. I hope you have a better understanding about all of these questions and the concept in those questions now. We'll discuss the next topics in previous year questions in the coming videos. Thank you.
So yes, that's all about the questions from research aptitude topic in 2nd December afternoon shift. You can study and prepare well using various Diksha platforms to make use of Diksha Mission JRF videos, our broadcast system and free ebooks that is provided through our website. So to get the ebook and to know more details about the various courses provided by Diksha, you can visit our website www.dikshaclassroom.com. Thank you. We'll see you in the next video.